Hey guys, it's Mr. Siciani here. This is going to be our writing mini lesson, part 2 for the rule of write about a pebble. So we're going to do a little bit of review, kind of chit chat about some of the things that we talked about last week, and give you guys an opportunity to take some time and practice the rule on your own and put it to practice. Okay. So first things first is I want to kind of share with you again that first draft of the poem Pebbles. Um, this was before this particular student decided to put some of those rules that we talked about last week into practice. So here's the poem Pebbles. A mineral, a rock, a quiet, innocent little thing that comes in all shapes and sizes, that you find on the beach, outdoors on your floor. But you think it's just another ordinary thing. But if you think hard, it's something that's special. Where would all the beaches and sand and gravel driveways be if it weren't for that one tiny, quiet, innocent, ordinary pebble? So that was the first draft of the student example. And here is the revised draft after the student took into consideration some of the principles that we've talked about last week. And I'll go over those principles again here once I'm done reading this poem. Okay. So this is the revised version. Pebbles. Now I'm not talking about any pebble. This one, I mean. It's polygon shaped and has a rough yet gentle surface that I can roll around in my hand or in my palm, that I can throw up in midair and catch in my hand. The one that dropped on the table makes a click, rattle, click. That's so light I can balance it on my thumb. Now I hope I'm not asking too much, but can you look closely like I did at this pebble? Then find your own special thing in the world. So it's a little bit different after he revised it. So what the reader did or the writer did in that second revised poem was he kept this in mind. He provided the reader with a being there type of experience. And what do we mean by a being there type of experience? Well, he made sure that he wasn't writing about a general idea or a topic. Okay? Like the first poem kind of it talked about the general idea of what a pebble was, whereas in the second poem, he wrote about a specific pebble. So for the examples that you see here, you don't want to write about dogs and kittens. You want to write about your dog and your kitten. So it's more specific as opposed to being general. Okay. So there was more of a focus and he used a ton of sensory imagery. You could hear sight, you could see, you could listen, you could hear sound through his words. You could visualize touch, smell, and taste. So he used all types of sensory imagery in the revised poem. He wrote more about concrete details and observed experiences. So in this case, it was an observable pebble that he held in his hand and he rolled in his thumbs and he tossed it up in the air. He talked about how much it weighed, that it was very light. So he used those sensory details to help paint that picture for the reader. Okay. So you guys are gonna kind of have to do a little bit on your own after you watch this video. But what I had in mind for you guys was I wanted you kind of to take a second and experiment with that rule of writing about a pebble, keeping in mind that you want to focus on something specific and use those sensory details. So what I'd like you to do is you can pause the video at this point, um, set a timer for 10 minutes, and just sit there with your pen, and your paper. Take a look at this picture and write, keeping in mind the rule of writing about a pebble, and write about this picture and sensory details about it, and just free write for 10 minutes. I also have another picture here. Once you're done free writing, there's two pictures here. So there's one of this little husky dog, and there's another one of these dogs kind of hanging out under the tree. So just experiment with the rule of write about a pebble. So you do 2 10-minute writes. You can time yourself and experiment with some of those things that we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. Finally, when you're done with your 2 free writes, do a little reflecting. All right, reflect on which image evoked your strongest writing, and then think about how it might relate to the rule of write about a pebble. So we're going to put the rule into practice, and then we're going to reflect which image evoked the strongest writing, and how might this relate to the rule of write about a pebble. Next week, when we chat, we're going to talk about writing about the rule of so what. Okay, and we'll get into that a little bit next week. But for now, why don't you guys take a minute, get to the point in the video where you're looking at this picture here, pause it, start your timer for 10 minutes, and write using the rule of write about a pebble. When you're done there, change to the next one, write for 10 minutes, and then reflect. All right, guys, hope everything goes well. Reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns.